Hi there, this is a short video aimed at students beginning work in an engineering design course. In this video, we're going to talk about working on a project that's sponsored or brought to you by a University of Michigan faculty member and therefore sponsored by the University of Michigan. And we're going to overview the types of agreements that you may be asked to sign in order to work on that project. I'm Bryce Pills and I teach at the University of Michigan in the Entrepreneurship Clinic. Like industry-sponsored projects, University of Michigan faculty are also working on cutting-edge research with the potential to be commercialized later on down the road, typically through the University of Michigan and the University of Michigan's Tech Transfer Office. Accordingly, before working on one of these projects, you may also be asked to sign a legal agreement. These legal agreements typically take one of three forms. The first is a confidentiality agreement, the second is a license agreement, the third is an IP assignment agreement. With a confidentiality agreement, you're asked to sign an agreement where you promise to keep confidential the sensitive information that's shared to you by the University of Michigan, typically through the faculty member that's sponsoring your project and working with you on that project. Some things to keep in mind with a confidentiality agreement are what types of information are covered by the confidentiality agreement. Also, what information can you share with a potential employer in a job interview? Quite often, engineering students find that the topic of their engineering design course project is one of the best things to talk about during an interview, but you want to make sure that during that interview, you're not sharing with an outside potential employer information that's covered by confidentiality obligations you owe to the sponsor of your design course project. You also want to make sure that you follow the terms of the agreement. Often, disclosures that are made that breach a confidentiality agreement are inadvertent in nature and simply made because of one's own sloppiness or carelessness. For example, you want to make sure that if you have information on your laptop or personal device, that you secure those devices, you don't lose them while you have information on those devices. The second type of agreement you may be asked to sign is a license agreement. A license agreement transfers intellectual property rights from you to the licensee. In the case of an internal University of Michigan sponsored project, that would be the University of Michigan. You would retain your ownership rights in the intellectual property, but you'd be granting to the University of Michigan the rights to use that intellectual property down the road. License agreements can be exclusive in nature or can be non-exclusive in nature. An exclusive license agreement gives the licensee, the University of Michigan, the right to fully exploit your intellectual property and actually use it to prevent others from competing against the University of Michigan or, more than likely, the University of Michigan's licensee, such as a technology startup company. A non-exclusive license is one that simply gives the licensees the right to use the intellectual property, but you can grant that license to other people on a non-exclusive basis. The third type of agreement you may be asked to sign is an intellectual property assignment agreement. The intellectual property assignment agreement transfers full ownership from you to the assignee, in this case, the University of Michigan. So one day you'd be the owner of your intellectual property rights, and by signing the agreement, you transfer to the University of Michigan, and they would be the owner of your intellectual property rights. Something the University of Michigan often does is it says in its agreements that in exchange for you transferring your rights to the University of Michigan, the university will treat you as if you were an employee inventor under the University of Michigan's tech transfer policy. You can find that policy at the tech transfer website, www.techtransfer.umich.edu. Generally speaking, the University of Michigan shares with its employee and faculty inventors some percentage of any royalties that eventually come into the University of Michigan. Now note that it's far from certain that any money will ever come in through commercializing this technology, but if it does, and the technology was licensed through the Tech Transfer Office, some percentage of those royalties are shared with employee inventors. So if your agreement with the University of Michigan for your University of Michigan sponsored project says that in exchange for transferring your rights to U of M, you'll be treated as a U of M employee inventor, that's typically what it's referring to, is that you would share, as would other employee inventors that worked on that technology, some percentage of the royalties. And you can find the specifics on that royalty sharing scheme in the University of Michigan tech transfer policy. So some things to keep in mind before signing a license or an IP assignment agreement with any sponsor, or in this case, the University of Michigan, are if you desire to have the opportunity to commercialize your engineering coursework after you're done with the course, such as through a startup company. In other words, if you want to spend the semester working on a project, and at the end of the semester be able to take that invention and perhaps commercialize it or form your own startup company to try to commercialize that technology, then a license agreement or an IP assignment to a sponsor, such as the University of Michigan, may be inconsistent with your desire to form a startup company. And you more than likely want to talk to your design course faculty and try to find a project that doesn't have any IP assignment or license obligations so that you will hold the exclusive rights in your technology at the end of the course. And that's a general overview of the types of agreements that you may be asked to sign if you work on one of the exciting projects sponsored by a University of Faculty member and therefore the University of Michigan. Patent inventorship is important because it's the inventor of an invention that's the owner of the initial patent rights covering that invention. Inventorship is also important because it's a pretty